This next slide looks at two possible ways of organising the project structure based on a smaller project with only one delivery team or a larger project with multiple delivery teams, in this case 3. So let's take the simple case first. We only have one delivery team. At the top level, we have the project board as usual with the senior user, the executive and the senior supplier. And in this case, they have a joint role with project manager and team manager fulfilling the same role. And again, we have to be careful in an agile environment as to whether or not we actually want a team manager or whether the team is self-organising. The other roles that are shown are customer representatives and supplier representatives, with customer subject matter experts and supplier subject matter experts. So let's take the customer representatives first. They are, in Scrum terms, that would be the product owner. The customer may feel they need more than one representative, i.e. more than one product owner, to fully represent their requirements and to convey the full range of knowledge of the business to the delivery team. The supplier subject matter experts could be that you just have, as we said before, generalizing specialists on the delivery team, and that's all you need. You may need particular specialists with particular specialist knowledge, and that can differ as well if you have internal and external suppliers. So if the delivery team is all from the same company, effectively all internal resources, that is slightly different than if the delivery team is actually having to use external resources. Maybe they have a specialist from the hardware manufacturer or the database manufacturer in an IT environment. In other environments, there may be partner organisations or suppliers where they need to draw in specialist knowledge from those organisations. And on the bottom, we can see quality assurance. And as I said before, the assurance role is a role that's really outside of the delivery team. It needs to be independent of the people delivering, so we don't have the situation where people are marking their own homework. We can see a more complex environment where we have multiple delivery teams. We've still got the same project board along the top with the senior supplier, executive and senior user, project manager, and then below that we have 3 delivery teams with 3 team managers shown. Again, question whether the delivery team feels they want a team manager or not. What's more of interest, I think, from my point of view, is where it's labelled number 2, customer representatives. So we have customer representatives on the project board with the senior supplier. We have customer representatives in the delivery teams. And also, as you can see there, number 6, outside the delivery team. So within the delivery team, we might have a customer subject matter expert who's product owner. We may have other customer representatives outside the delivery team but who want input into what the delivery team are doing, both at a low level, at the delivery team level, and at a higher level. So sometimes the customer representative at the higher level can be referred to as a senior product owner or a super product owner. It doesn't really what term they get and whether you call them customer subject matter experts or customer representatives or product owners, and what you call them at each level doesn't really matter. The important thing, as I said before, is if you have customer input at multiple levels of the project, and particularly you've got customer input as you as project manager has customer input above you at the project board level and below you at the delivery team level, that you need to ensure within your organisation strategy and your communication strategy, you need to ensure that you get a common view and that any anomalies between the view being presented at the delivery team level and at the senior level are resolved. So you need to think about how you document requirements, because in an agile environment particularly, the product owner or customer subject matter expert or customer representative at the delivery team level, a lot of their communication will be verbal. It'll be one-to-one with the delivery team. If that differs from the information that's being passed down at the board level, at the project board level, you need a way of resolving that, identifying it firstly, and then resolving that difference. One final point on the slide, there's reference to various quality assurance roles, and there's a suggestion you might have supplier quality assurance, customer quality assurance. You could have a quality assurance coach. What I would just remind you of is the PRINCE2 principles. So we can have project assurance, which is the responsibility of the project board, which is assuring that the project is being run correctly. So in some ways, in an agile environment, the Scrum Master is performing some of that role because they are effectively ensuring that Scrum is being run correctly. But project assurance is focused on processes and procedures and how we are delivering the project. So that in an agile environment, you might have people ensuring, as it says at the top, that everyone on the project team is conversant with working in an agile way and is exhibiting the behaviours that we need them to exhibit. Quality assurance is about checking the quality of the product, and that'll be a different group of people with a different focus, and they need to be independent of the people delivering the product. So yes, the people delivering the product will of course check the quality of their own work, but the assurance role needs to be outside of that. We're now going to talk about servant leadership. And the first thing to realise about servant leadership is it's not new. It's been around at least since the 1970s when it was first highlighted by Robert Greenleaf, but really it has been around much longer than that. So it's not new. It's usually seen as best practice for an agile team, and I think that goes back to the people who created the Agile Manifesto in terms of them describing how they would like to work and how they would like to be led and or managed or not managed, depending on your viewpoint. The basis of it is the best way to lead a team is to be its servant. So I prefer to focus on leadership that provides service to the team. So as project manager, I provide a service to the delivery team. And I think that it's effectively saying the same thing, but it takes away the class connotations of the word servant. One of the key concepts of Agile is that everyone working on the delivery team is equal, is of equal importance, is contributing to the common good. So that collaborative development, collaborative achievement of goals. And that's how it should be, and that's the important thing. The use of the term servant leadership can lead some people to, unfortunately, treat the person who is supposed to be in the role of servant leadership as less than them, and that's as anti-agile as someone in a leadership role taking a command and control type approach and micromanaging people. The important thing is coming back to the 5 PRINCE2 Agile behaviours that we collaborate. So it's the collaboration that everyone on the wider project team collaborates for the good of the project. It says on the slide that some of PRINCE2 could be said to be in conflict with servant leadership. I'm not sure I agree with that really. If you read the PRINCE2 manual or go on our PRINCE2 course, one of the things we cover is what PRINCE2 doesn't cover. You know, it says in the manual PRINCE2 covers this, it definitely doesn't cover this. And one of the things it highlights that it doesn't cover is management skills, is how you manage. It leaves that open. So it absolutely leaves open that you follow a servant leadership type of approach to managing your project. Now, clearly, it depends upon you as a project manager and your character and how you prefer to manage, and also your organisation and the environment in which it operates. In safety critical environments, there are certain rules and regulations you have to follow. Now, whether you view that as a command and control type leadership or not, it doesn't really matter. There are, in safety critical environments like the nuclear industry or the rail industry, there are rules and regulations you have to follow for the safety of everyone. So it doesn't mean you can't be agile in certain ways, but you have to apply it appropriately to your organisation and your environment. And as I said before, and the slide confirms, so the focus is on empowerment, collaboration and facilitation. So don't get hung up on titles, servant leadership or anything else. The focus, as it says on the slide, the focus is on empowerment, collaboration and facilitation. And that is entirely in line with standard PRINCE2. We empower people by delegating, we manage by exception, we work in collaboration for the common good. And I would suggest any successful project manager seeks to facilitate their delivery teams, their development teams, to ensure that they have everything they need in order to achieve the goals the team needs them to achieve. Slide re-emphasises the point, depends on context, so your environment, your organisation. And as I said before, nothing in PRINCE2 limits the use of servant leadership because PRINCE2 is agnostic in terms of leadership styles. It's as appropriate to your context, to your organisation and environment. We're now going to talk in more detail about incorporating a wider customer view. So on Scrum in particular, that we've talked about previously, has quite a narrow view of the customer's view, i.e. you have one product owner who represents the customer view to the Scrum team. Now that does have advantages in that the delivery team, the development team, only has one person, whoever that is, to talk to get information, so they have a clear view in that it's coming from one person. As we saw on larger projects where you have multiple delivery teams and the customer wishes to have multiple levels of input, so the customer is represented on the project board, they want to be represented in the various delivery teams, the customer themselves may feel that one product owner at whatever level just can't represent them fully. We'll need to have more roles. So what PRINCE2 does, PRINCE2 recognises that and has introduced the term we had on the previous slides where we talked about customer subject matter experts and customer representatives. And that's really in line with standard PRINCE2 where we talk about stakeholders, and anyone affected by the project is a stakeholder, and we clearly need to manage stakeholders and get input from stakeholders. And PRINCE2 Agile is really just taking it a stage further and saying, well, we'll have customer representatives, we'll have customer subject matter experts, and we need to agree how we're going to integrate them into the delivery team. And again, it's a classic case of there is no right and wrong answer. You have to do what you believe is best for your project within your environment, but recognising that you're likely to have a senior user, you'll have a senior user representative and the executive representing the customer on the project board, and then you may have several additional customer representatives at the delivery team level. And as I said before, one of the most important things is to ensure that you're getting a common view from the customer. So whether the customer is represented by one product owner or a dozen different people at different levels, you need to ensure there's a common agreed view coming from the customer. You don't want to get into that situation, which we've probably all been in, when one customer representative says, we want to go to B, and another customer says, no, we want to go to C, and then, no, we want to go to... So yes, the customer needs to manage themselves, but you as project manager need to manage the customer and ensure that any anomalies in the information you receive from the customer or any disagreements between individuals representing the customer are identified and resolved quickly. Because if they're not, it can waste a lot of time, it can lead to delivery of incorrect products, and it can really have an adverse effect on your project. We'll just pick up on one more point, which is the bottom point on the slide, that the product owner operates best from inside the delivery team. So what that's saying really is, and it's about collaboration really, so not just collaborating, the supplier collaborating, but collaborating with the customer and working closely with the customer. I think I mentioned before, often I've worked in situations where we as supplier have chosen to work on the customer sites to improve that collaboration and to enable the customer to be part of the delivery team, so you can have that interaction, rather than if you're on different sites or even maybe in different cities or even different countries, it makes the communication more difficult, and it can be long. It can be a longer period of time. You can go, if you go down the wrong path, you can get further down the wrong path before you have communication with the customer to say, oh no, you're doing the wrong thing. We need to be going down this path. The final slide we have on organisation is to do with working agreements. And as it said, they're used to evolve the effectiveness of a team. And the best way I've found to do this is to get the team together in a workshop. It may even be a scrum type meeting or a stand-up meeting. And really it's just the team agreeing how they're going to work, and in simple terms writing them up on a whiteboard or a flip chart, but having them visible so that everyone can see it, that everyone's agreed to it, but that they're dynamic, so they can change. Because remember, whether we in a Scrum environment or PRINCE2, we want to learn lessons, so we make them up with agreement at the beginning of the project, and they go, well, actually that number 4 isn't working, we need to change it. We need to learn lessons and be able to adapt. So having it on a whiteboard is good, because you can wipe it out and modify it if you need to. I mean, we come across working agreements in all sorts of areas. It's very common for, if you're a member of a sports club, or if you have children at school, that there's a working agreement that goes along with that. So if you're in a sports club, there might be agreements about how you treat the changing rooms and what condition you leave changing rooms in after you've used them, equipment related to your sport, how you leave the equipment once you've finished using it, so that the next person who shares that equipment or also uses that equipment can find it and it's stored in the right area. There might be agreements about the clubhouse, and if you've got a bar, and how we behave in the bar, and various things like that. For schools, there tends to be, I think they call them home-school agreements or parent-school agreements or pupil-school agreements, and it's to do with behaviour and treating people with respect and turning up on time and honouring commitments. So, I mean, that's a good point, is there are lots of these available if you want to kind of a start of 10. I'm sure you'll be able to go on the web and do a search and find a lot of suggestions of basic things. Hopefully within your organisation, a lot of the basic things like treating people with respect are just ingrained within the organisation and ingrained within us as individuals in society. So ideally, you'll focus on specifics to your project rather than general things like treating people with respect. So rather like we do with risk, when we're looking at risk on a project, we don't want to be looking at risks that are handled higher up in the organisation level. We just want to focus on risks to our project that aren't addressed elsewhere. And in working agreements, we really want to focus on specifics to our project, not things that are focused elsewhere. So if we have things in general HR policies within our organisation, we don't really need to replicate them within our project working agreements. And as I said, I would hope that certain things like treating people with respect are just societal norms, and we all do that automatically. So we shouldn't really need to put those in our working agreements. It's more specific things, maybe to do with how we communicate, and saying that perhaps our first form of communication should be verbal and not email. You may have specifics like that, or we don't copy senior people into emails that they don't need to know about, or those types of things. Collaboratively defined, built by consensus. So again, self-organising teams, the team needs to decide what's in their working agreement. Built with care, yes, of course, but remember they need to be modifiable. We need to be able to change them. We need to be able to improve them. If we put something in that we find is wrong, just modify it. So again, doing it on whiteboards, a great way to do it.